Thank you, Mr.
Tell us about today overall first.
Okay. Overall today, first of all, I want to point out that Felicia Marcus will not be able to be here. However, Pat Johnston and Don Natoli will both be here by 10:30. Thus, and they requested that we move the executive session so that they could be part of that.
Right.
Thus, the rearranging of the agenda. I should also mention that Ms. Marcus, as you know, has been appointed to the State Water Resources Control Board. That's a full-time position. She will be stepping down from the council when she assumes that. When I talked to her, she was planning to assume that sometime in mid-June, so she will probably be here at our next council meeting the first part of June and remain a member of the council till that time, and then step down upon her being sworn in as a member of the state board. With that, I'll turn first to Kurt Miller to talk about legislative update.
Yeah. Oh, members, also, I forgot to mention, on your desk is UC Davis Law Review. This is a repeat conference on the public trust doctrine in California, and it repeats what the Davis folks did almost 30 years ago at one of their seminal conferences. The entire volume is directed at public trust with articles by lawyers and law professors experienced in this area. I've read about 4 of the articles so far. Interesting and worth reviewing. Mr. Miller.
Good morning, members. Go through items with efficiency, I hope. Your packets have an update on legislation for Delta and water policy legislation. There has not been a lot of activity since you last met. Tomorrow is the deadline for fiscal bills through appropriations. There'll be some losers and winners when that process is done. It'll be reflected in the update you'll receive for the June meeting. The state budget. The numbers came out in the May revision. They're working on about a $16 billion deficit. Under normal scheduling, the conference committee will normally convene next week or the week after. Given that there is a primary election this year on the 5th, it may be their work won't start till after the 5th, but they probably name members next week in order to get started. Our one item in the budget was approved by both houses, so we are okay for now. That was the extended term for the employment of the sixth science person for 2 more years, so that's been taken care of. Phil mentioned the Little Hoover report. Their recommendation to the legislature is to adopt the governor's plan as submitted. The legislature has until approximately July 4th to say yay or nay on adoption of the plan. If they are silent on the issue, it goes into effect immediately, and then follow-up legislation will be introduced in the new session starting in December to enact all the changes that are proposed in the 345-page bill. And finally, on federal legislation, there's been no activity on the bills that I outlined for you last time. They're either on the Senate floor or in subcommittees awaiting hearing. However, a new bill was introduced this week by Representative Garamendi and others that would require the Army Corps to establish variance regulations for levee vegetation requirements instead of a one-size-fits-all for the United States, which is what they have now in the regulations, would allow some flexibility on setting those regs, particularly in light of California's interests in keeping the levees from eroding from underneath and loss of habitat due to tree removal and things like that. So that bill is not in print yet, but when it is in print, we'll take a look at it and get a summary out for you.
I do want to add to Kurt's report. You may have read that the governor proposed changing the working hours for state employees, and that might have an impact on us. What he proposed was a 4-day work week, 9.5 hours per day, closing the office 1 day a week. That would then reduce everyone's pay by 5%. If that occurs, then it might change the days of our meetings if they say Fridays is the day. We did receive a questionnaire from the Department of Personnel Administration asking questions about how we might implement it, and so one of our thoughts would be if they were going to implement it that we would take the day on Monday rather than Friday so that the council could continue to meet on Thursdays and Fridays. But that won't be our decision, and all of that will be impacted by what the legislature does with the budget over the next couple of months. So, well, we may be coming back to you next month with revisions to how we have to operate.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And I'd like Chris to give a legal update.
Is it on? Yep. Okay. So this will be very brief. First of all, I'm pleased to inform the council that we have secured the services of a new legal intern she will be starting June 3rd. So you will actually get some more in-depth legal briefings at your council meetings very shortly. She comes to us from McGeorge School of Law and is very interested in water policy and will be a very good fit. So we look forward to having her joining us soon. In the meantime, we from time to time like to give updates on the plethora of litigation and cases that are out there with regard to Delta-related water issues that aren't the major ones that we typically follow, which are the smelt and salmon biological opinion cases that came out of then Judge Wanger's court that are now on appeal at the Ninth Circuit. So I'm just going to give you a quick rundown on a couple of the interesting cases that we've taken note of but haven't been following in great detail yet. First, with regard to the Army Corps of Engineers levy policy, we've reported in the past on the policy that they instituted some time back that you can't have trees or shrubs on levees, and so that caused great consternation amongst DWR, Fish and Game, and others that claimed that there were actually great benefits to having that, and it would cost inordinate amounts of money to actually clear cut and get rid of all the shrubs and trees on levees. There was one suit that was filed in federal court a while back that Army Corps of Engineers tried to dismiss that. Recently, the federal judge said that case could actually go forward. So we'll be following that case. Yesterday or the day before, a new case was filed by the Department of Fish and Game, the state agency, as the trustee agency for fish and wildlife resources for the state of California. So the Department of Fish and Game actually sued the Army Corps of Engineers in U.S. District Court, same kinds of issues with regard to its levy policy, claiming that it didn't do adequate environmental review before it instituted the policy, didn't go through the proper procedures. So we'll be following that case for you as well. So a couple cases against the Army Corps of Engineers. There's an interesting case that was recently filed with regard to water transfers up north. Chico's Aqua Alliance sued to block Butte Water District's transfer of water from Butte and Sutter counties to Kern County. And the issue here, without going into great detail, at least alleged by the plaintiffs, is that the water transfer in effect is really a whole bunch of water transfers. It's a recurring serial transfer. Butte County has been taking advantage, according to this complaint, of provisions that allow it to do one-year water transfers. But over the course of many years, at least according to this complaint, it's been the similar or same type of water transfer. And the plaintiffs here are saying that before this transfer goes forward, you have to do a programmatic analysis of the effect of this series of water transfers. So this is an issue that we've touched upon before. will be following this lawsuit as well.
Not unlike the issue raised by the exemption granted for one-year water transfers in the final staff draft Delta plan, which does not deal with cumulative impacts of repeated yearly transfers.
It doesn't, but we'll preview just that one issue. I know that we're talking with DWR staff next week and others about water transfers, and we'll nail down some of the language, but you're absolutely right. Jumping ahead, there was a lawsuit that was filed by California commercial fishermen suing the federal government over what it calls approval of short-term interim water contract renewals. So they're bringing an action claiming that instead of going through the process that's set out for long-term renewals under the Central Valley Project Improvement Act, the federal government has actually been doing interim contracts. And again, the issue is, at least according to this complaint, that the proper environmental reviews and procedures haven't been followed. So we'll be following that lawsuit as well. Then there was note of actually a settlement of a lawsuit with regard to FEMA and the flood insurance program. The Coalition for a Sustainable Delta has brought a whole bunch of lawsuits focused on what it calls the other stressors with regard to the Delta problem. And they did sue FEMA with regard to the administration of the National Flood Insurance Program. The coalition was arguing that that program was actually fostering urban growth in floodplains that otherwise would provide habitat for threatened and endangered fish. So they've come to some kind of settlement where FEMA is now going to have to consult with wildlife agencies about the program. It's unclear what the result of that settlement will be, but there was a similar settlement up north in the Puget Sound area that led to a temporary moratorium on floodplain development and had a whole bunch of new restrictions. So it's the same sort of issue as up in Puget Sound. Coalition for Sustainable Delta, we've reported on, they've had numerous lawsuits, but they're trying to address the problem of the Delta crisis in a host of ways. This was one of the ways, an interesting way, a relevant way perhaps to what we're trying to do here. We'll monitor that as well. So
Okay.
with that.
All right. Questions of Mr. Stevens? Okay. Mr. Grindstaff?
And the last thing I'd like to point out is we included the letter that we sent to the Conservancy about their scoping process, and I just wanted to mention that that is included in here, and we will follow closely the development of their strategic plan.
Yeah. I just thought of two additional things. Many of you will remember June Lopez, who's been here at many of our meetings testifying from the Calaveras Water District. She's returning to Orange County, I read in some bulletin somewhere, to run a water district down there, and that's going to happen. Joe, I don't know when the transfer is going to happen, but probably sometime
in the next month or so, yeah.
So she'll be, and Orange County is where she started, is my recollection.
I think she started in L.A. County, but
LA County.
in the same general area.
Right. Also, there was an interesting news report this morning out of San Diego, and this is part of the continuing, sometimes not polite battle between San Diego Water Agency and Met. But the City Council, I guess, had included staff projections of water cost in San Diego, estimated now at, they estimate $900 per acre foot of delivered water, projected to increase within 9 years, as my memory is correct, to $2,000 an acre foot. Now, I am 125% certain that will be disputed by many people on calculations, but it was an interesting evaluation of relying on your own sources, whether it's interbasin transfers or whether it's conservation or other efficiencies, as opposed to exports. That was the argument, and of course it's part of the larger battle. Hank, did you look at their? It was just out, so I've not had a chance to read the full report. Hit it again just to see.
Is it on now?
Yep.
Sounds like it's on. There was an article in the paper a couple days ago about a huge increase given not so much by MET, but by the local water authority. And I ran into Maureen Stapleton last night, and we're going to set up a luncheon in a couple of weeks. We'll
Okay.
talk about it.
Great. All right. Good. Thank you very much. All right, members, let's